Good morning, all of you. Today's class, we are going to discuss about the marginal productivity theory of distribution. This is coming under Block 5, Unit 17. In this particular topic, we are going to make the student familiarize with the marginal productivity theory and what are the features, what is the assumption, and how it works. All these things we are going to discuss. The main objective of this particular topic is to analyze and understand the monopolistic company. After that, factor pricing it should be there. So that's why the marginal productivity theory of distribution is more important as examination point of view. Let us get into the class. The oldest and most significant theory of factor pricing is marginal productivity theory. It is also known as micro theory of factor pricing. It was propounded by German economist J.H. von Neumann. But later, many economists like Karl Major, Walras, Wickstead, Edgeworth, and even those people, many other people have contributed to the development of this particular marginal productivity theory. According to this theory, the remuneration to each factor of production tends to be equal to its marginal productivity. It's the axiom of the theory. What is it? The remuneration to each factor of production tend to be equal to its marginal productivity. The marginal productivity is equal to the change in the total quantity of production by employing one extra unit of the factor to the production process. So long as the marginal cost factor is less than the marginal productivity, the entrepreneur will go on employing more factors. He will stop giving the further employment when the marginal productivity turns into equal to marginal cost. So this is the basic thing. As we read earlier in market structure, the profit will be maximized when marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, and it should intersect from below. So that gives the marginal productivity should be equal to its marginal cost. That indicates on that particular position the profit is maximum. Now let us move to the definition of this particular theory. There are many authors have defined this particular thing in different way. I have given two definitions, one by J.B. Clerk and the second one is by Mark Blank. According to J.B. Clerk, the distribution of income of society is controlled by natural law. If it worked without friction, would give every agent of production to the amount of wealth which that agent creates. It's a very clear definition about the marginal productivity. One more definition is Mark Blank. According to him, the marginal productivity theory contends that the equilibrium of each productive agent will be rewarded in accordance with its marginal productivity. So, how the remuneration or reward is given based on the marginal productivity. That's what the Mark want to mention it. This is the last definition that we are going to. That is, this is by Leo Fusky. According to him, the marginal productivity theory of income distribution states that the long run under perfect competition, the factor of production would tend to receive the real rate of return, which was exactly equal to the marginal productivity. So under perfect competition, the rate of return must be equal to the marginal productivity. That's why Lewandowski have said. So this particular theory has number of assumptions. I have mentioned few main assumptions. The total number of assumptions is 13. We will see one by one. You can expect a section C question in this particular thing. What are the assumption of marginal productivity theory? Let's start with the first assumption, perfect competition. So this particular theory assumes there must be a perfect competition. The marginal productivity theory has a fundamental assumption of perfect competition. This is because it can't take into account unequal bargaining power between the buyers and the sellers. So the price uniformity is badly needed, then only the theory will hold good. The second one is homogeneous factors. This theory assumes that the unit of factor of production is homogeneous. This implies that different units of factor of production have the same efficiency. Thus, the productivity of all workers offering a particular type of labor is the same. Then let's move to the next assumption about the rational behavior. The theory assumes that every producer desires to reap maximum profit, because human wants are unlimited. Everyone want to have a more profit only. So this rational behavior is there when we want to implement the marginal productivity theory. This is because the organizer is a rational person, and he so combines the different factors of production in such a way that the marginal productivity from unit of money is the same in case of every factor of production. That is, every factor has a marginal productivity that must be equal. That's what we want to prove. So the firm should be in rational behavior, failing which it's not possible to implement the theory. Then the fourth assumption is about the perfect substitutability. The theory also based on the assumption that the perfect combination not only between the different units of the same factor, but also between the different units of various factors. Normally, one land will be compared with another land. One particular type of investment will be compared with another type of investment, or one particular machine will be compared with another machine. But here, we are not only comparing their own factor, but also between the factors. That is, the land will be compared with the mission. The organization will be compared with the capital. So that is the interchangeability. Substitutability is there. Then the fifth assumption is perfect mobility. The theory assumes both the labor and capital are perfectly mobile between the industries and localities. In the absence of this assumption, the rewards could not be never tend to be equal between the different regions or employment. So this is more important assumption as far as this particular marginal productivity theory is concerned. Then the sixth assumption is the interchangeability. This implies all units of factors are equally efficient, and of course it is interchangeable. This is because different units of factor production are homogeneous. Since they are in the same efficiency, they can be employed interchangeably. For example, whether we employ fourth man or fifth man, it's one and the same, because both of the laborers are having the equal efficiency. That makes sense. So the seventh assumption is a perfect adaptability. That means the theory takes for granted that the various factors of production are perfectly adaptable as different occupations. Then the next assumption is knowledge about the marginal productivity. Both the producer and the owner of the factors of production means knowing the value of factors of marginal product. And almost all the theory used to have one particular assumption called full employment. So this theory also assumes that the various factors of production are fully employed, and exception those who are seeking wage, and of course the value of the marginal product. Then the 10th assumption is law of variable proportion. This theory believes that the law of variable proportion is applied in the economy. Then the 11th assumption is a number of factors of production should be capable of being varied. The theory assumes that the quantity of factor of production can be varied. What does it mean? That their units are either be increased or decreased. Then the remuneration of factors become equal to its marginal productivity. So the next assumption is the law of diminishing marginal returns. What does it mean? It means that when more and more of unit of factor of production are employed, the marginal productivity of that particular product will go diminishing at a certain point. That's what law of diminishing marginal returns states. So this particular theory assumes that the law of diminishing marginal returns is there. Then the next assumption is this particular theory applied for the long term. That is, the marginal productivity theory of distribution seeks to explain the determination of factors remuneration only for the long period. Here the word only is you have to specify. It is not for long period. It is only for long period. So for a short run, this theory cannot be applied. So based on these 13 assumptions, the marginal productivity theory can be explained. I will continue with the explanation. The marginal productivity theory states that under perfect competition, the price of each factor of production will be equal to its marginal productivity. The price of the factor is determined by the respective industries. The firm will employ that the number of given factors at which the price is equal to the marginal productivity. Thus, for industry, it is the theory of factor pricing that the firm it has a factor is based on the demand theory. So keep it in mind, this particular theory under perfect competition, and the factors are equal to its efficiency. So these two are the axiom of this particular theory. We have to keep in mind, and then we have to study about this. How to analyze this? Under such conditions of perfect competition, I already told you these two conditions. The price of each factor of production is determined by the equality of both sides. Both sides in the sense the demand side and the supply side. As a theory assumes that there exists a full employment in the economy, therefore the supply of factors is assumed to be constant. So the factor price is determined by its demand. Underline the point. You have to understand this. When we can able to identify, we have to make the equality of demand and supply. But theory assumes that there is a full employment. So full employment, no need to bother about the supply. So the supply factor is assumed to be constant. So it's easy to explain the theory. The factor will be determined with the demand, which itself determined by marginal productivity. So we are considering only the demand side and the two in terms of marginal productivity. Thus, under such condition, it becomes essential to throw light on the demand curve or the marginal productivity curve of the industry. As the industry consists of a group of many firms, accordingly, the demand curve can be drawn with the demand curves of all the firms. Moreover, the marginal revenue productivity of factors constitutes a demand curve. It's only due to the reason that the firm's demand or a labor depends on marginal revenue of productivity. A firm will employ the number of laborers at which the marginal revenue productivity is equal to the prevailing wage rate. If it exists, he will stop it. So that's why in x-axis we are measuring the labor and in y-axis the wage paid. This is for the individual firm, the first figure for the individual firm and the second figure for the industry. So therefore, in figure 2, it shows that the wage rate of OP1, see the figure, OP1, the demand for the labor is Y1. Number of laborers is number of price. You can see that. Have you seen that? Yes. It shows that the wage rate is OP1 and the demand for the labor is Y1. And the marginal productivity curve is MRP1. If the wage rate falls to OP, then the firm will increase the production by demanding more number of laborers. In such a situation, the price of the commodity will fall and the marginal revenue productivity curve will also shift to MRP2. Understand that? If it is, we stop the number of laborers employed, then it moves from MRP1 to, it will move to MRP2. In figure 2, it shows the same. At to OP level of wages, the demand for labor will increase to ON. Here, D1 is a firm demand curve of the labor. You can see in the diagram. The summation of the demand of the all firms shows the demand curve of the industry. Since the number of firms are not constant at a perfectly competitive firm, because the entry and exit of firm, that is anybody can get into the market and they get out from the market. So it is not possible to estimate the summation of the total demand curve for all the firm. However, one thing is certain. What is it? The demand curve of the industry also slopes downwards from left to right. It can't be because demand curve slopes downwards. The number of labors may differ from time to time, but the demand curve slope downwards. That is given. We should keep in mind. The point where the demand and supply of factors are equal will determine the factor price of that particular industry. That is why this theory assumes the supply of factor is fixed. The factor price is demand by the demand factor, that is, a factor price will be equal to the marginal revenue productivity. This has been shown in figure 3. And in figure 3, you can see that particular diagram, one supply curve, one demand curve, and W is where the marginal productivity is there. In figure 3, the number of labor has been taken as OX. And in that particular axis, the wages and the MRP have to be taken in the Y axis. So understand, labor is measured in horizontal axis and MRP is measured in the vertical axis. Here, D1 is the industry demand curve and is also the marginal revenue productivity curve. D1 is a marginal revenue productivity curve. So the factor base OW equal to marginal revenue productivity of MRP. Thus, under perfect competition, the factor price is determined by the industry and the firm demands units in the factor at that particular price. So this is the way we can explain the marginal productivity theory. Suppose if they ask explain the marginal productivity theory, then what you have to do, first you should write about what is marginal productivity. Then you have to give the list of assumptions, 13 assumptions. Then you have to say what is the individual demand, what is the industry demand, why the supply is constant because of full employment. Only demand factor is considered. That demand factor is expressed in the marginal productivity. So that from MRP1 to MRP, how it shift, how the marginal productivity influence the factors inputted. So the expected semester question for this particular thing is, they may ask define marginal productivity, or they may ask write a short note on marginal rate of productivity, or explain the assumption of marginal productivity. This is possible section B question, and in section C they will openly say describe in detail about the marginal productivity of distribution. With this, I am completing this particular class. If you have any doubt, you can ask me, post your comment for this particular. Thanks for seeing my video. May God bless you. We will meet in the next class.